Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Now entering the game for Philly Pressbox Radio, Bill Furman and Jim Chet Chesko.
Hey, Philly sports fans. It is Wednesday evening, July 17th, and it's episode 504 of the Philly Pressbox Radio Roundtable. I'm Chet, you know that. And the other guy, well, Bill Furman, he's traveling this week. Rumor has it one of his sons is getting married in the days ahead, so congrats on that. Fear not, I've got a full hour of Philly sports talk and more for you with a couple of fantastic guests joining me along the way. I'll tell you about those guys in just a minute. Topics for this week's show include, well, the Phillies at the All-Star break, the 76ers here in midsummer, the Eagles just days away from the official start of training camp, and stand-up comedy too, believe it or not, we will discuss. I'm not joking. I will cover all of that and more with the help of two first-time visitors to our show. You know them, you love them, at least I hope you do. First of all, we have Phil Stiefel. He is the host of Trending in the AM here on the Edge of Philly Sports Network and the host of a great podcast called CooperTalk, a comedian from South Jersey, Steve Cooper. The three of us and everyone watching will have lots of fun this week, I promise you. So let's get it started. To do that, we will welcome to the show our first guest from Trending in the AM. It is Phil Stiefel. Phil, how the hell are you?
I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited to have power. As I was telling you before, it's been about 23 and a half hours of no power here in South Coatesville. So, we got this back just in time for this episode here tonight.
Yeah, sorry you had to go through all of that. I know it was kind of touch and go all afternoon, but you're here, you're okay, and hopefully things will improve at the pizza shop too. We'll discuss that a little bit later on. I said this when I made that little 10-minute visit to your show a few weeks back, Phil, to shamelessly plug our 500th Philly Pressbox Radio show. Thank you for that. I don't know how you do what you do. That's a daily 90-minute show, sometimes with guests, oftentimes without, and yet you don't have any, dead time. You certainly have a gift for gab. Let me say it that way.
Yeah, I mean, people think it just, happens. You know what I mean? Like, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of work. I spend a lot of time, preparing and researching and reading and watching sports and following social media to make sure that whatever my tagline on my show is where your opinions actually matter, because I feel like fans out there want to have conversations about sports without the hot take. So whenever somebody brings a topic up, I want to make sure I know something about that topic. So I spend a lot of time reading, researching, studying, watching, doing everything. And, it's a passion of mine. It's something I really, truly, thoroughly enjoy doing on a regular basis.
And by the way, kudos to Freddie Burns. Freddie, who was on our show off and on for about 3 years, I think. And then, he went on to fame and fortune, I guess, with Edge of Philly. He filled in for you Monday morning, did a fantastic job. I watched the entire show.
He did, and I watched as much of it as I could, and I loved that I call my regular listeners the Core 12. Yeah. It's not 12 people, but it's just the regulars that come in every morning to the show. And I saw a couple of the Core 12 giving him a hard time and welcoming him graciously. And I loved it because that's what we do on the show every morning. We talk, we debate, we give each other a hard time, make fun of me for mispronouncing names and that,
I worked in radio a long time and I mispronounced a lot of things on the radio. Like when I first moved to Jersey, I called it Deborah Hospital, not Deborah. I didn't know. I mixed up Newark and Newark, when I first moved to Jersey, because I didn't know either of them. So you live and you learn,
Now it's kind of accidentally become my shtick. Like I still to this day don't know how to say his name. The Eagles tight end, Albert O, whatever.
God, yeah, just
when
Albert
he first
O,
came to Philadelphia last year, whatever I said, it somehow came out and sounded like Aqua Bowman. So whenever we talk about Eagles tight ends, the third tight end on the Eagles is Aqua Bowman now, because I don't know. It's just the way it happens.
Well, let's talk a little Philly sports. Let's talk Phillies first. Even with that horrible 18-3 loss to the lowly A's on Sunday ahead of the All-Star break, the Phillies, as I put up the standings right here, are 62-34. They have an 8.5 game lead over the Braves, but, and I say but, 38 of their final 66 games are on the road, and the schedule after the All-Star break is not really that easy at all. Road trips to Pittsburgh and Minnesota right out of the gate, then a couple of home series against two of the American League's best, the Yankees and Guardians, following that up with a West Coast trip, including another series with the Dodgers, who are going to want some revenge. All of this with a couple of pitchers, Wheeler and Suarez, who had to be scratched from their last scheduled starts because of injury concerns, minor injuries, be it anyway. Having said all that, should we be concerned about the road ahead for the Phillies?
Concerned big picture? No, I really don't think so. If you think about it this way, there's 66 games left in the season. They've got to go 33-33. That's 500. That still gets them to 95 wins. With the Braves, with their injuries, that at the very least gets you the division. And they're not going to go 33-33, even with the tough schedule. The team is way too talented to go 500 the rest of the way. You've built up this 8.5 game lead. You can give guys like Ranger and Wheeler, a little bit of a break here or there if you need to. I'm not concerned. Maybe my concern is starting to creep in where maybe they're not a shoo-in to make the pennant. Maybe they're not a shoo-in to make the World Series anymore. But the playoffs are still, in my opinion, a 110% lock. Even if they don't go out and sign a big or trade for a big name player at the deadline, this team is just too talented to go even 500 the rest of the way. So I'm not concerned. I think they'll be fine. I think that a move or two that Dave Dombrowski could make would put them back over the top a little bit. But this is the Phillies we're talking about. They're the best team in baseball right now, and there's a reason for that.
Well, you mentioned Dave Dombrowski and possible moves. What would be a number one priority for you? Would it be an outfielder? Would it be a true closer? Just another role player or what?
You got to get an outfielder. You can't go into the playoffs with Pache or however you say his name, Rojas. Well, they just did DFA Whit Merrifield. You can't go into the playoffs like that. So you definitely need another outfielder that can start. There's a lot of names that everybody's been talking about. Any of them will make a drastic improvement. I always look back to, the outfield and the bench last year in the playoffs. Who made the last out of the playoffs last year when we got eliminated? Jake Cave. We can't get to the playoffs this year where it's an elimination game or a clinching game. The ninth inning rolls around and you've got a guy like Jake Cave. And this is not a knock on Jake Cave. But Jake Cave's not a World Series champion type player, even on a bench. You need to make sure you bolster that starting lineup, which would then in turn, help the bench a little bit more. And then we're good. But you got to go out and get, I've said, you might need even to get two bats, a starting outfielder and a depth outfielder just to move on from all those, okay players that are out there right now, platooning in the outfield. Go get two of them if you have to before you even get a pitcher.
Yeah, outfield would be my number one goal for sure. I'm kind of okay with the relievers. I mean, Alvarado scares me a little bit, but I like Hoffman a lot. I think Hoffman will be the true de facto closer when we get to September and October. So I'm not too worried about that. Hey, did you watch the All-Star game last night?
Unfortunately, no power. Could not watch it. I literally 30 minutes ago, I didn't even know who won. Because out here in South Coatesville, I don't get very good cell phone reception.
Yeah.
So until my internet was restored, I couldn't even get on ESPN.com to look at who won the All-Star game. Yeah. I literally went the last 23 hours with no cell phone, no Wi-Fi, no internet, nothing. It was like disconnecting for a day. It was actually kind of refreshing, but I did miss the All-Star game. I do know that the Phillies all did pretty okay yesterday.
Exactly. That was what I was going to say. The pitchers, both, I guess three of them got in, all did okay. The batters all.
Did I read that he threw two pitches and got two outs? I mean, that's pretty awesome right there,
And it's saving that arm. I like it.
Yeah.
And Bryce Harper on Monday at the Home Run Derby with the Philly shout out, I guess, with the Wooder that he was giving Alec Cole. And that was kind of cool. I know he panders to the Philadelphia fans, but I thought it was kind of okay for that setting, a home run derby, which is just a fun atmosphere anyway.
Do you think anybody outside of Philadelphia even knew what that meant on the Wooder jug And it kind of looked like a bottle of Paisano, cheap Italian table wine that he had filled up there, which is in my kitchen at all times. I don't think anybody understood that joke whatsoever.
Not at all, but they did try to explain it on the air, although I think the announcer called it water, or he said it a little differently than water.
I mean, that's how I say it, water. I'm a
Yeah.
Delco kid, born and raised, so that's how I was raised to say it as well.
That was a fun home run derby, by the way, and kudos to Alec Boehm coming in, I guess, third, after losing out in the semifinals. Did very well, though, certainly represented well for a guy who was considered the longest of the long shots among the 8 home run derby contestants.
Yeah, I kind of disagree. I think it was a pretty boring home run derby. I am not a fan of the timed rounds. I miss the days of the 10 outs, being able to actually see the ball land in the outfield because you got 9 different camera angles that there. Maybe the derby was fun for the people in attendance, but in my opinion, watching it on TV Monday night, I couldn't. My mind was all over the place. I'm like, what am I watching here? I miss 10 outs. They take their time. They take pitches. I prefer this. I know that's the more traditional way to do it, and they're trying to speed things up. They're trying to make it more rapid fire, but I want to see the ball land, in the third deck. I don't want to be watching the pitcher in one camera angle, watching this home run here. The clicker, the counter can't keep up with the actual home runs because even the production crew can't keep up with what's going on. To me, I'm putting the home run derby now, which is my favorite all-star event in all sports, down there with the slam dunk contest now of lack of interest and all to me.
All right. Yeah, that is the downside.
That's my opinion.
The timer and even the batters, they can't see if it's landing in the upper deck or even in the stands. They got to focus on the next pitch that's coming within 4 seconds. So I'm with you on that. Hey, let's switch over and talk a little football and the whole Eagles situation. Certainly an interesting offseason. And one of the big questions is the relationship between the head coach and the starting quarterback. So what do you make of that? Is there an issue, do you think, between Sirianni and Jalen Hurts?
I don't think there's an issue in this. I know you've been in the media business for a long time, but I kind of feel like the issues are made up by the media to drive a slow off season of what to talk about. I have no concerns whatsoever about how Jalen Hurts, because it's all driven from that press conference he had where he didn't really say anything. But people forget Jalen Hurts went to the school of Nick Sirianni. The school of Nick Sirianni is you actually literally take a semester class on how to handle the media. And that's the way he handles the media is what he's been taught since he was a freshman in college. So I do not worry about it. He would have said the same thing if he was talking about Nick Saban or Bill Belichick or anybody else. That is just how he talks. And that is who he is. So I am not worried about it at all. I'm more worried about Nick Sirianni taking a lesser role. I'm more worried about whether Jalen Hurts can get closer back to 2022 form. But I'm not worried about the two of them being on the same page whatsoever.
I'm slightly worried, not drastically worried, but I'm a little concerned because I think there is something there that just isn't right. But we shall see. As far as Sirianni, I think he'll be okay in the sort of CEO role, assuming Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio do their jobs well as coordinators. I think they'll be all right. What about the fact that you're losing a couple of leaders like, Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox? Those guys are gone. Is that going to be an issue at all or a concern?
I mean, especially on the offense, I might be the only person in Philadelphia concerned about Cam Jurgens taking over for Jason Kelsey. I know Cam Jurgens is a blue chip. Oh, he even got a graphic ready for that. I love it. Everybody is saying he's a blue chip prospect. He went to the school of Stoutland University. He's going to be fine. But people are, I don't know how, but they're underestimating the leadership ability, all the work that Jason Kelsey did on that offensive line, calling out protections, doing everything, being that anchor for so long. I think people are putting too much pressure almost on Cam Jurgens because everybody expects him to slide right in and do exactly what Jason Kelsey did, and he can't do that, especially early in the season. I had Chris Franklin on my show Tuesday morning from NJ.com, and he's like, week 3. I mean, the whole start of the season is tough, tough offenses and tough defenses that we're going up against. You got a Saints defense and Dennis Allen in week 3. Cam Jurgens is not ready and experienced enough to see every single look that he has got to call out. Plus, he's going to have a young right guard standing next to him in Tyler Steen, who Jason Kelce helped Cam Jurgens when he was a new right guard. You know, Cam Jurgens is not only going to have to figure it all out, but he's going to actually have to help coach Tyler Steen up a little bit on the field as well. I'm very concerned there, big time. I'm not as concerned about Fletcher Cox on the defensive side of the ball. I think we are fairly deep. You know, Jalen Carter needs to step up and do more. Jordan Davis has to stay in shape all year long. So there's bodies there. There's people there. You still have Brandon Graham on the defense that can lead that defense, Darius Slay. But I am way, way more concerned about Cam Jurgens taking over for Jason Kelce than almost every Eagles fan out there.
One thing I'm excited about, and I'm sure you've talked about this guy a lot on your show, Saquon Barkley, now an Eagle. I think he's going to have a real good year, assuming he's used properly and, of course, stays healthy.
Yeah, I mean, Saquon Barkley, I love this. I always tell people, no matter what sport, if you're in a win-now position, like the Eagles are right now, and you swing for the fences, because let's be honest, Saquon Barkley is a swing-for-the-fences type move, because you don't pay 27-year-old running backs that kind of money very often in the NFL. But he is a very upper echelon, top 5 running back when healthy. He's never played with an offensive line like the Eagles. Man, just say it fails, say he gets hurt, say we don't win a championship with him here. I will never fault Howie Roseman for going out there. Well, I don't know about that, Robert. But, I will never fault Howie Roseman for going out there and be like, look, we've got a set team. Let's swing. Let's go for the home run. Let's bring in Saquon Barkley. And if it doesn't work out, we'll deal with the consequences later on.
Martin thinks you're too concerned about too many things.
That's one of my original core 12. That guy's been following me around in this business I keep changing networks to get away from Martian. He keeps following me everywhere I go.
And what the hell kind of name is Martian?
Yeah. I've never, in 3 years of him watching my shows, I've never asked him where the name came from.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, before we get back to sports talk and maybe talk a little Sixers, we were talking off the air about the fact that, you run this pizza shop in Kennett Square, and you haven't really done broadcasting until just a few years ago. There's a little shameless promo for the business.
I always got a menu sitting back there for the shameless plugs,
You can hold it up again anytime you want, man. But do tell me how you got into the whole broadcasting thing. You said it wasn't that many years ago, and obviously you're doing pretty well with it. You know what you're doing. So how did it start?
It's funny. My original major in college, my freshman year of college, was at Drexel University. I ended up transferring out of Drexel and going elsewhere and graduating elsewhere. But I was originally a broadcast major at Drexel my freshman year. Had some things go on personally, whatever. That got put on the back burner. Long story short, we go away, my sister's family and my family, every year for New Year's. And my sister and I, one night on this vacation over New Year's week in 2019, 2020, I don't know if it was before New Year's Eve or after New Year's Day it had passed. My sister and I drank an entire bottle of Tito's vodka that night. I don't know why. I don't know how. But both of us made drastic changes in our lives after that night. That next day, I went and I emailed 4 websites that were looking for freelance writers. I latched onto one. The website doesn't even exist anymore. But the Eagles draft in 2020, when they drafted Jalen Hurts, one of the other writers is like, hey, you want to just record some audio and talk about the draft? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's have fun with that. Whatever. So we did that, and then we turned it into a podcast. We had a podcast that I moved on from him after a little while. But, it was just kind of one of those things where I'm like, hold on a sec. Talking, interacting, doing this kind of thing is so much easier and so much more natural to me than sitting down and trying to write an article. I'm not a fan of writing articles, so it kind of came pretty natural to me. My wife wanted me to get a hobby also, and I think she now hates the fact that I have this hobby because it pretty much has taken up, 90% of my free time. But, it is what it is, and I love doing it. And I want to side note, because for about a year and a half, I didn't have a morning show. My goal, though, was always, once Angelo Cataldi retired, to become the king of mornings. And then he announced he was retiring eventually, and I'm like, all right, it's time for me to start ramping up this morning show idea. And that's where Trending in the AM came from, because I wanted to take over for Angelo. I mean, I grew up. I was born in 1980. I grew up listening to Angelo every morning on the way to school. I mean, who wouldn't want to have the most entertaining, fun, interactive morning show in sports in Philadelphia?
And how did our fearless leader at EOP, Big Al, lure you to Edge of Philly Sports earlier this year?
It's funny because this was not why, but we actually went to elementary school together. He was a couple years before me. His sister and I were in the same class at Holy Cross in Springfield. So that's just a side note there. But he was always a fan. He was supporting my show for a little while. I had him on as a guest. Then we started small talking back and forth. Nothing against the other brand I worked for before Edge of Philly. But he was very persistent. He saw what I did. He thought it would be a perfect fit on Edge of Philly. We debated, we discussed, we talked, and here we are. So we're November 1st will be 3 years of trending in the AM.
And when did you start with Edge of Philly?
In April, just before the draft this year.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Going well, and it's great to have you here as well. Let's talk a little Sixers. I don't know how much of the Summer League action you've watched. I watched a little bit here and there. Jared McCain still having some shooting problems. The big guy, Adem Bono, looks like he can play defense, but not a whole lot of offense there. So I don't know what we're going to get from these kids right out of the gate. But, I put up the NBA title odds. These are as of last Friday. They have the Sixers tied with the Oklahoma City Thunder now for the second best prospect as far as winning the title next spring. Do you understand that? Does that make sense?
No, I'm a big betting guy. I love to bet. Some people will call me a degenerate. I would never take 8-1 odds on the Sixers to win a championship. I love the offseason the Sixers have had so far. I don't think it's enough. I don't think they're deep enough. I don't think they can compete with the Celtics. I don't think they compete with the Knicks. I might go as far as saying they can't compete with the Bucks, who just signed Gary Trent yesterday, I believe it was, maybe 2 days ago. I don't think the Sixers are there yet. They still are very weak at power forward. Honestly, like you said about Bona, right now the games Joel Embiid misses, Bona's going to be playing 10, 15, 20 minutes a game in those games. He's not ready to play in the NBA. Adem Bona needs to be in the G League for 2 years before he sees an NBA court. They're still weak at guard. They're still weak at small forward. Yeah. There's very little depth on this team. They're very heavy in the first 4 to 5 guys in this team. And in my opinion, the rest of it is just, it's okay. This is good. This is a very good starting 5. But all the names under them, they're okay.
Of course, the big key is keeping number 21 healthy, as always, and it never seems to work out that way.
No, never. It doesn't. But hopefully with Andre Drummond now as the backup. Everybody wanted him at the trade deadline last year. It fell through with the Bulls. I kept telling people he's not the only person that was available, but you needed a big-name backup center, someone that could fill in. Last year, Paul Reed did an okay job when Joel Embiid was starting. But when Joel Embiid had to sit and Paul Reed had to play 35 minutes a game, he was exposed. And that kind of forced Joel Embiid to maybe come back a little sooner than he needed to, et cetera. So you need a guy that can 25 times a year start and play 30 minutes a game. You got that in Andre Drummond. I think if we would have gotten Andre Drummond at the deadline last year, we would have finished in the 4th or 5th seed of the Eastern Conference, and who knows how the playoffs would have played out at that point.
Yeah, going to be interesting. And, we've got to hope for good health and that Paul George still has 2 good years left in him, and we'll see what happens. Hey, Phil, in addition to your daily trending show, you host a Tuesday evening show about, golf. Fairway to Heaven. I didn't catch this week's show, so tell us, who wins the British Open over in Scotland this weekend?
I dove deep into that because I didn't lose power till after Fairway to Heaven was over last night.
Okay.
I am going with Colin Morikawa, former Open champion. He is my pick to win it. I also do love Tom Kim a lot this week, a guy that's just built for links golf. Tom Kim's a young up-and-comer. He's 23 years old, hasn't won a major event yet. If anybody not in the elite top 10 category wins it, it would be Tom Kim, in my opinion. I love the Open Championship. Anything that's been around for this is the 152nd year of the Open Championship. There's something special about that. So I love it. I love to wake up and have the golf on with my coffee in the morning because of the time zone differences and stuff. I love Open Championship. I do, and I really need Colin Morikawa to win because it's been a weird, wacky golf season. And as a guy that's been very good over the last 4 years picking winners in golf, like most degenerate golf bettors, I've had a terrible season this year because of just the craziness of the golf world this year.
Well, Phil, we've talked a lot of sports, which is always fun, but let's squeeze in a couple other non-sports fun items. We mentioned you own a pizza shop in Kennett Square. What's the name of that place? And do you have a menu or anything you can hold up?
I don't know. Hold on. Let me dig for that menu. There it is. Fox's Pizza, Kennett Square, PA, 16 and a half years in business.
My question for you, what is the best or your go-to pizza topping?
Ooh. First off, let me say pepperoni is the most overrated pizza topping there is. That is the most overrated pizza in the world right there. For me, personally, when I make my pizza, I do sausage, a nice Italian sausage, or bacon, sometimes both, red onions, and hot yellow banana peppers. That's my go-to combination right there. It's perfect. Especially if you get a nice Italian sausage on it. That right there with those red onions. It's a great pizza combination right there.
Well, don't judge me, but pepperoni is my go-to.
So overrated. It's greasy.
I understand.
I don't even like anchovies, but give me an anchovy pizza over a pepperoni pizza any day.
You know, to be honest, I don't think I've ever tasted an anchovy in my life, but it just doesn't want me to taste it. I don't know. I can't.
The smell of anchovies bothers me, but
yeah, it's not for me. Hey, Phil, our second guest tonight is a guy named Steve Cooper. He's not only a Philly sports fan, he is a stand-up comedian, and I'm going to talk with Coop about his favorites and mine. But do you have any particular favorite comics, either from the current day or back in the day?
Richard Pryor,
of
course, is one of my absolute favorites. George Carlin, absolutely one of my favorites as well. I like people that push the envelope. And what's his name? Matt Rife. I know he gets a little fire every now and then, but his crowd interaction, it pushes the envelope, and it's not for everybody. I like a comedian that makes me like, oh, but still laugh at the same time. That's just me. But I like to go to old school Richard Pryor. I love to watch old Johnny Carson episodes, late at night, and he always has there's always Pryor episodes in the replays. So I am always a big fan of Richard Pryor. Chris Farley. I was just watching Chris Farley highlights just a few minutes before the show went live. So I didn't even know you were going to talk about comedians. What Chris Farley did as a big guy, I'm a big, chubbier guy.
Yeah.
What he did with that physical humor, that was prime Saturday Night Live, Tommy Boy, all that. Mid-90s, Farley was the number one for me.
He and I hung out in a van down by the river. People know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Phil, this was so much fun, and time just flew by as I knew it would. Tell everybody where they can find your daily show, and if you have any social media pages you want to mention, or whatever.
Yeah, well, my show's right here on Edge of Philly Sports every single morning, 8 a.m., trending in the a.m. Fairway to Heaven is Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. There's only about 5 more weeks left of the golf season, and then I'll go on hiatus for the football season. But we do that from January, through September in the Tour Championship. All my social media pages, wherever I'm at, if I'm on that social media app, it's right there on the screen at Beard A Knowledge. My beard's not as long as it used to be, but that's the only way you can find me on social medias. And I will interact. If you follow me on Twitter, that's my biggest following. I literally will interact with anyone and everyone about anything: sports, TV, movies, music, whatever it may be.
Pepperoni pizza. Pepperoni pizza.
No pepperoni pizza. Come see me at Fox's Pizza, guys. Kennett Square. I'm there almost every single day as long as we have power.
Yes.
Except for when Big Al decided to surprise me with a visit like 2 weeks ago, and it happened to be a night I took off. So,
well, good luck getting the power back at the pizza shop. Hope you're back in biz tomorrow, or certainly by the next day. You got to be ready for the weekend. Phil, this was great. Let's do it again sometime.
Thank you very much. And again, congratulations. Don't wait 503 more episodes to get me on, okay?
I promise. Thanks, Phil. See you.
Have a good one.
All right. That was so much fun. I knew it would be, man. What a great guy. And his show is terrific. I've watched it occasionally. I don't watch it every morning. I watch the Today Show in the morning, okay? Don't judge me on that either, but I like the Today Show. I like Savannah. I like Hoda, even though some people don't, as you'll hear in the next half hour. We'll get to that. Let's give a shout out right now to our Edge of Philly Sports Network lineup. All the shows at EOP. The gang has all the bases covered. You can catch all the action on EOPsports.com, as well as Edge of Philly Sports on YouTube. And you can find our show on the Philly Pressbox Radio YouTube channel, as well as on our Facebook page. And by the way, we haven't had any new subscribers to our YouTube channel, Philly Pressbox Radio, in the last 2 weeks. And that is not right. So if you haven't yet subscribed, go to YouTube and subscribe to Philly Pressbox Radio. It's free, so it's worth every penny, all right? So please follow, like, do all that stuff. Share with your friends and family. And sign up. You'll also receive the EOP weekly review in your email every Friday morning. Now, let me tell you also about the Irish Rover Station House, our other main sponsor, along with Cavs Philly Tailgates. The Irish Rover Station House in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, has Quizzo and prime rib and martini specials every Wednesday evening. That's tonight, yeah. They recently started having seafood platter dinners every Tuesday. Of course, the Irish Rover always has a terrific waitstaff, happy hour specials, and 24 beers on tap. And something else the Irish Rover has is another one of those paint and sip events on the calendar. That is Tuesday, July 30th. Be sure to get your tickets in advance for that. It does sell out. And if you're looking for work, well, the Rover is right now looking for kitchen help. In other words, cooks and dishwashers. The Irish Rover Station House is on Bellevue Avenue in Langhorne. Check the website, irishroverstationhouse.com. Ray Diddy, where are you?
Hi, this is Ray Dinger, and it is always fun to talk sports with these two guys, Bill and Chet, on Philly Pressbox Radio.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh, if anybody is wondering, with football season approaching, we absolutely will have Ray Didinger back on our show in late August or early September. I promise you, I know we all need that Ray Diddy fix, so we will have him on again before too long. Also, great to hear Ray plus Jody Mack, Mike Sealski, and a slew of guests last Saturday on Glenn Macnow's final WIP show. That was a great 3 hours. It really was. Again, congrats to Glenn. Enjoy retirement. And good luck to Rob Ellis, who was just named to succeed Glenn on the Saturday show with Mike Sealski. And while I think of it, I had that picture of Cam Jurgens ready over in the last segment because Cam Jurgens is not only taking over for Jason Kelsey, but he wears number 51. And we are exactly 51 days away from the Eagles' regular season opener in Brazil. That is 7 weeks and 2 days. Yeah, a Friday night. The Eagles and Packers will meet in Sao Paulo, Brazil. By the way, I thought maybe that Jurgens chose number 51 because he was the 51st player selected in the 2022 draft. I guess not, because he actually wore that same number at Nebraska. So he didn't know when he was going to be drafted, but number 51 is apparently a good number for Cam Jurgens. You know what, folks? In about 45 seconds, we will have our chat with Steve Cooper. So tell your friends, Coop is on deck.
If you get hurt at work, in a motor vehicle accident, personal injury, or affected by criminal law, you call David R. Cherry of the Cherry Firm. Cherry Law Firm is here to fight for you and get what you deserve. Cherry Injury Law is a dedicated, well-established personal injury law firm built on the promise of aiding the seriously injured throughout the state of Pennsylvania. If you have been seriously injured in the state of PA by the negligence of another, and if you have questions for a Westchester or media personal injury attorney, please don't hesitate to call. Call 610-565-0300 or go to cherryinjurylaw.com. Let David R. Cherry fight for your right. And again, that number is 610-565-0300 or go to cherryinjurylaw.com.
Always fun to welcome a first-time guest to Philly Pressbox Radio. And this one's going to be a whole lot of fun, I'm sure. He is a Philly sports fan. He's a music lover. And also, like me, he's a podcast host. But he's also something that I am definitely not. That is a comedian. Let's welcome this guy to the show, Steve Cooper. Coop, how you doing?
Thanks for having me on, Chad. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
All right, first off, I met you back in late 2022 down at Splits in Maple Shade with our mutual friend, Bob Vitrone Jr., a.k.a. Boop. And I've gotten to know you a little bit, over the past year and a half since then. But for people who don't know, what is your background? Are you a Philly, South Jersey guy?
Yeah, I grew up in Cherry Hill, went to Cherry Hill East, class of 82, graduated Stockton State College, now Stockton University. So I'm Jersey through and through, grew up a hardcore sports fan. And then when I got out of college, about 2 years after I got out of college, I got into comedy. I did stand-up comedy. I used to tour tour on the road up and down the East Coast and Midwest. Then I ended up in LA, and I was in LA for a very long time. I was in San Diego and then LA. I was in LA for, I think, 16, 17 years. And I moved back 7 years ago. And it's funny about that picture because I had known you, as I said, through Boop. And the only reason I knew Boop was when I was in LA, I used to have a segment on the late Big Daddy Graham show.
Yeah.
And I would call in and he had played the Hollywood Shuffle song. And I'd always make up a celebrity I ran into. And he'd always get all excited. And I'd be like, yeah, I ran into the bit. And I'd be like, Don Most, who played Ralph Mouth. And I got to know Boop through that. So when I moved back, Boop used to hang at Splits. So I rode down there to see him. So
yeah, and then I got to meet you there, which was great. Well, hey, you're a sports fan. I know that. What is your degree of Philly sports fandom?
Hardcore, man. You know, when I was in LA, I always laugh. They won the Super Bowl the year I moved back, and it was great. It was great to be here. But I lived in Burbank, and I used to walk to the bars, and I'd always wear my Eagles shirt because the games are at 10 a.m. And I'd always take the walk of shame because I never won. And I'd have Cowboys fans and Raiders fans, which makes no sense, yelling crap to me. But they would yell stuff to me, and everyone knew me as the guy from Philly. Like I would go, and if I saw someone at a bar with like a Phillies hat, I'd start talking to them. I'm a huge fan, and I'm lucky that, you know, my wife is a huge football fan. So I got lucky where not only is she beautiful, but we watch football together. And you know, nice. I buy her jerseys for Christmas. So I'm as big as they come. I'm not the hateful fan that so many, you know, and we do a little bitterness. But it was years. I always compare it before we won the Super Bowl, being an Eagles fan to when you were a kid and you're waiting outside the liquor store and you got someone to buy you beer and they came out with Zima. Like that was our disappointment. You know, that's what we went through. But I love Philly sports, and you know, and because I've lived in other places, man, Phillies fans aren't nearly as bad as Dodgers fans who are beating up people in the parking lot. It was just that one incident about the snowball, and I get a hard time from the people all the time, and I'm like, the joke's old, man. Like the Philly bad sports fan joke is overdone.
Well, speaking of jokes, we need to discuss your comedic skills. When and how did you get into the stand-up comedy world?
You know, when I was in college, I said, I want to try to do stand-up. And I'd never been on stage. I didn't know anything. And a guy who was a senior who took me under a wing as a freshman, there was a contest called Mr. Stockton. It was like a Miss America contest. And I went on, and my talent was a Rick Springfield air guitar to Jesse's Girl. And it destroyed, and I got on the news, and I got that bug. And then when I graduated college, I had a sales job. I was selling fax machines. And my mom said, if you want to do comedy, look, I found this class at the Learning Annex. So I went to the Learning Annex in Philly. I was never really in Philly that much. I took the train over, I think it was once a week for like 6 weeks. And to end the class, we ended up doing stand-up at the Comedy Factory Outlet in Philadelphia, which was an unbelievable club. And that's how it got started. And then I got a job working the door there because that meant better stage time. And I got to watch the masters, you know, like, you know, the headliners would come in, Bobby Collins, Tim Allen, Dice, Don Herrera, and I would watch them, and you learned the craft. And so that was my start. And then it's just like anything, you know, in business, you branch out. I started getting booked here and there, and then I'm flying to Florida to do a gig, and I'm driving to Indiana to do a gig. And it went from there.
Nice. And by the way, every couple of days on Facebook, you post these little, what I call Facebook one-liners. Here's a few on the screen from the past few weeks. I love this stuff. Just subscribe to Urine TV. It's streaming. And you know what? I think that would actually be a hit with some people, Urine TV, unfortunately.
You know, they're just, I don't use them in my act. Anything I put on Facebook, I don't use in my act. I did actually the other joke. I'm not going to say it. But I did because it was about being hot. How I said it was so hot out, my ball stuck to someone else's leg. And
Can I tell you something? Can I interrupt you? I'm glad you brought that up. I like to think that I make, occasionally funny jokes, and I, try them on my wife all the time. Never get a laugh ever. Today I came in the house. I said, "Damn, it's hot out there." I said, "It's so hot, my balls are sticking to somebody else's thigh." And she actually laughed for like 10 seconds. I said, "You're laughing at that? That's not my joke." That's
give me the credit. You know why I write them? Because they come up and that's my friend actually texts me, goes, "Oh my God, that joke is funny." And because I write so many of them, I forget. I wrote that joke like 3 years ago, and it popped up in my timeline once. And it just so happened it was a really hot day that when I posted it again a few weeks ago. I write them just because they're fun. And, people get so heavy on social media. And I had a whole thing where I'll show myself out where I say I went to the whatever cafe and had this. They're just stupid. And I always think that writing a stupid joke is hard. You have to really dumb yourself down. Unfortunately, some people write stupid jokes all the time, but I enjoy doing them. I just, as I said, you go on Facebook and everyone's just arguing, man. And I'm like, no, that's why I do the album stuff. I do all that stuff because that's what social media is for, to make us happy. I like when you do your song of the day. I'm like, oh, cool. It's not the same stuff of, F Trump and F this and F Biden and I'm like, we don't need that. Facebook's supposed to be fun.
Hey, so many great comedians over the years. I was a big fan of Carlin, Rodney Dangerfield, Stephen Wright, Eddie Murphy, of course. Who were the comics that you resonated with the most?
One of the earliest comics I got into was Woody Allen. His stand-up was brilliant. And I think back, with comedy, I remember I picked up I got the album George Carlin, Toledo Window Box. Now, I grew up a waspy family. My parents didn't know what pot was. I didn't know Toledo Window Box was something you grew marijuana in, even though he had pot leaves on his shirt. And I listened to him. And what I liked about Carlin, and also with Cheech and Chong, because I became fans of them, it was just good comedy. And with Carlin, I didn't always know what he was talking about. But when he'd be like, jumbo shrimp, that his inflections just made me laugh. And same with Cheech and Chong. I went back and listened to the White Album. My brother used to listen to that album all the time, my older brother. And I listened to it, and now I get it. But back then, I didn't get it. It made me laugh because the voices, the inflections. So, any comic, we watched Pryor, and Stephen Wright was a brilliant writer. Kinison was great. I just really just loved stand-up. I love watching, and I love seeing on the Tonight Show. And I've been lucky, Rich Scheidner became a really good friend. He's one of the best comics out there. And then like Jimmy Schubert's a great comic from Philly right now. And so, yeah, I like them all. I just love comedy. I love getting an album or a cassette, and just listening to it so much.
Yeah, well, speaking of comedy, let's promote this event before I forget. It's a week from Thursday. Speakeasy, comedy, stand-up. Where is this? And tell us about it.
Okay, this place, I met the owner, George Cook, through networking. It's a place called the Soundplex. It's in the middle of a neighborhood, like it's in the middle of Pennsauken and Maple Shade. Pennsauken and Merchantville. And I'm not saying this because I have a show there, but it is hands down the coolest venue in this area. You're walking downstairs, there's amazing artwork. There's a room downstairs that holds 80 for music. It has couches and a full stage. Then you go up the steps where my show is. We hold 60. Next to it's a full-on recording studio. And then in the back, there's they have wine tasting. It's BYOB. It's a little speakeasy. That's how I came up with the name Speakeasy Stand Up. And it's a great gig. And I wanted to put really shows together. I could headline shows if I concentrated on comedy. I don't concentrate on comedy that much anymore. I have fun with it. But so you have me hosting, and I always get a strong feature. Katrina Braxton's so funny, and Mark Riccadonna is amazing. I put on these shows. You have to have the right vibe to play my room, and it sounds weird, but if you ever get in a room, do it. And if you buy tickets, you can also Venmo at Soundplex Studios. It's $30 beforehand and $35 at the door, and it'll be a great show. And you get wine tasting, and then you can bring your own booze. You're a beer guy. You can be bringing like all these cool beers. And it's like, I always think that'd be cool. I always said we should do like a craft beer comedy night because, you guys are so, I'm sort of into the hazy IPAs somewhat, but because of soccer, I've been drinking, Carlsberg and Kronenberg and Boddington's because they only played yesterday. I'm back in that kick, but that'd be great because you always have good beers. I always sit there and I go, oh man, I'm like, that sounds good. You had a pretzel wheat, which I was like, I don't understand how that works. Like, did it taste like a soft pretzel? What?
Yeah, there's a definite salty pretzel taste to it. That's the third or fourth one that I've had, different varieties. A couple of the other ones that I had kind of, went kaput, but this one has been around for a few years now. It's out of Hanover, Pennsylvania, Aldous Brewing. And yeah, pretzel beer tastes great. I highly recommend it. Hey, I'm going to warn our viewers that right now I'm going to put up partial nudity. It's actually you somewhat topless 1983, Steve. You posted this on Facebook, so I felt like it was okay to post it. It's a college-age Steve Cooper. Do you remember how you captioned this picture?
I said, well, what's funny is my wife looked at it because we went to the same college, but I didn't really know her. I mean, I knew her. I knew her boyfriend, but she noticed in that picture, it's a Rolling Stones poster behind it, which is cool. I think I put Meisterbrow, Jersey Stinkweed, and listen to Billy Idol. And you know, I that was probably in 83, as you said, and it was a different time. And I'm bald, as you can see, I'm bald now. I had gray hair. In fact, you know, when I was on Facebook, I ran into this girl I hadn't seen for years. I went to high school, and she went, "Oh my God, you had such great hair." I'm like, "Yeah, it was all the 10X and dippity do I put it at to gel it." But it was, that was a young me. And I don't, someone sent me that picture, and it's funny because that's what it was, though. We would sit there, we would go to school, but we smoke a little pot until I think I smoked something that was laced, and I freaked out. And I was like, I can't smoke this stuff again. And you would drink and you would have fun. And the music, I know you're a big music guy. The music scene back then was just so incredible. And I was lucky enough to have a roommate my senior year, but I became friends who came from Hong Kong. And he turned me on to like Ultravox and English Beat, these bands that I really didn't know. And then this young surf kid from Central Jersey turned me into the Violent Femmes. So it was a great time, and I lived it up, man. I was, I looked like Danny Amentulo from the show Fame.
And you did. You nailed that caption. Let's get some Meisterbrow, Jersey Skunkweed, and listen to Billy Idol. There you go. Hey, I want to talk with you about the podcast that you do, CooperTalk. We'll talk about that in just a second. Bill Furman and I, my radio partner, have been doing Philly Pressbox Radio for a little over 10 years now, and we did our 500th episode last month. But you do this CooperTalk show, which is great. I've checked it out. You have great guests, and earlier this year, you topped the 1,000 episode mark. You're up to like 1015 or 1016 now. Congrats on that. Tell us about CooperTalk.
Well, CooperTalk started when I lived in LA, and I had a corporate marketing manager job for a restaurant. And I met this guy who had an internet radio station, and someone said, "Oh, Steve, it'd be great to have a show." So I was also doing comedy, and I started getting comics on my show, and I would have to play 30 minutes of independent music and then talk to them for 30 minutes. But I'd have two shows. And there's more CooperTalks. The guests weren't big enough that there's somewhere there from 12 years ago. And I just started doing it, and I started getting listeners. And he said, just forget the music, talk. So I was getting guests, and I remember my first big guest was Kato Kaelin. I ran into him at a comedy club, and I was like, and he was the nicest guy. But after a while, I'm like, you know what? I have it. It's a nice studio in a nice building in Burbank. I said, I'm going to start reaching out to people. So I just started sending letters to actors and on Facebook or emails to people. I found their email address, and I started getting great guests. I got Ed Asner. I get, Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses. Every character actor, Willie Garson, all that. And it just started picking up. And then I said, I'm going to get musicians. And I met John Corabi, who didn't do it 2 years later, and this guy named Troy Patrick Farrell, who was White Lions drummer. He did my show. He got me Gilby Clarke. Then I got some punk drummer, and I met my good friend Rich Revin, who plays for Aldine. Next thing you know, Billy Joel's drummer, Liberty DeVito, called me, and I just started building. And then as I got building, when I moved back east, I did it remotely, and I got a really good name with PR people. They liked me. And then the actors liked me, I think, because I was never a fanboy. I did it. I brought it in. I would talk with him. We do an hour. Stephen Bauer from Scarface, I did 3 hours with. Tommy Chong, an hour and 45 minutes. And we just talk. We talk about life. We talk about the creative process. I don't want scandal, because they'll tell you the scandal. Jack Russell from Great White, I didn't ask him about the big fire, but he told me somehow he was in jail because he was on angel dust robbing coke from someone's house, and he shot a maid. And I wouldn't have asked for that. It just comes out. And a lot of my guests say, Coop, you just bring stuff out of us. So I call them organic chats. I don't call them interviews, because it's sort of what we're doing right now. We know each other. We're just talking. And I think that's the form we need. I don't write any of my questions out.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I do my research. And you can go to CooperTalk.net to find it. But I don't write any questions out, because I only have people on that I'm fans of.
Nice. Hey, let me mention just some of the guests you've had on in the past year alone. Actors like Adam Baldwin and Scott Cohen. And from the music world, Buck Dharma, Blue Oyster Cult. Love those guys. Mick Mars, formerly of Motley Crue. Artemis Pyle of Lynyrd Skynyrd. The Cars, Greg Hawkes. Foghats, Roger Earl. Guitar legend Joe Bonamassa. Glenn Phillips of Toad the Wet Sprocket just recently. Thomas Dolby and the great Ian Hunter. That is an impressive list, Coop.
Ian, thank you so much. Ian Hunter was great because we didn't do it Zoom. I did it, but dude, you think about it. He's like 83, and his last album. I know you listened to the album. His album was great, and I'm like 83, and he's still writing music, and he was so cool. So,
and I was really jealous with this one, Coop. Catherine Mary Stewart. Now, I met her very briefly back in 2011, but you got to sit down with her for nearly a full hour. I listened, and I was very, very jealous the whole time as I listened.
She was so nice. And she dropped an F-bomb. America's Sweetheart.
Yeah.
She dropped an F-bomb. Yeah, it's funny. I reached out to her. And a lot of times people will do research. Usually when I give the list, they say, okay. But I just reached out to her, and she got back to me. And as I said, she couldn't have been nicer, just honest. And all those early movies, everyone on Facebook's like, oh my God, we had a crush on her. And what you see like in the picture there, that's exactly who she is. Like she's just sweet. And, and she was a great guest.
And she still looks amazing. My God. Hey, Steve, let's finish up with a game of Fast Five. All right.
All right.
Here we go. Number one, who are a couple of your favorite Philadelphia athletes, sports guys back in the day?
I loved Andrew Toney. I loved Randall Cunningham. Gotta love Mike Schmidt. I love the Bull, Greg Luzinski. The list goes on, man.
Yeah. Number two, you're a big music guy. What was the first concert you attended?
I saw Yes in the Round. And it's funny, real quick story, if I can say this.
Yeah.
I saw them with John Anderson and Rick Wakeman. And then years later, like a few years later, Jeff Downs and Trevor Horn from Buggles joined. Well, take me back. I'll take you back about 20 years. When I was in LA, I used to hang at a pool hall bar called Fantasia, and Jeff Downs was in Asia, and my friend introduced me. So I remember I used to smoke cigarettes. I remember sitting on the patio drinking a Bass and smoking a cigarette with Jeff Downs and talking to him. And in my mind, I'm going, I should be really, really happy I'm sitting with a guy who is in Yes in Asia, or I should feel sad that this guy from Yes in Asia is sitting with me. And I actually ended up interviewing him a few years ago.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Number three, who's a comedian that most people find to be very funny, but you don't?
I don't want to talk trash on people. It comes back to get you. And there are people, but I like to be the positive. I'll be honest, I really don't watch stand-up. I don't anymore because I did watch Keith Robinson. My friend's special was great, Different Strokes, but I don't really watch it anymore. So I don't want to get myself in some feud with someone.
Number four, Steve, I'm a fan of the Today Show. Why does Hoda Kotb annoy the F out of you?
Dude, I'm going to be honest. Joanne watches every day. She's just not good. I'm sorry. Like Savannah's good. She's a good interviewer. Hoda is just like she doesn't know how to interview. She's almost as bad as Jimmy Fallon when it comes to an interview. Like Jimmy Fallon has a ton of talent. Don't get me wrong, but he should have a variety show, not interview, because he fanboys. She's a fangirl. And I just don't like her. And she just tries to be too cool. And she's everywhere. I'm like, no, it's like her and that Nepa baby, Jenna Bush. No, there's people who deserve this stuff. You don't. So, yeah, that's why. I just don't like Hoda. My wife, I think Hoda and Gus the Groundhog are the two people in the media I hate. That's all I'm going to say. I don't hate her. I mean, I would be nice to her. I would have her on my show and I'd give a good interview. But I think she doesn't deserve big leagues.
I agree with what you said about Fallon. I definitely agree with you about Gus the Groundhog. But I kind of like Hoda, even though, she is a bit of a fan.
Sure she's very nice, and she seems to see.
Number five, what is your favorite sports movie, Coop?
Oh, man. My favorite sports movie. I still remember, and this goes back, how both Something for Joey and Brian's song made me cry, man. I love them. But there's just, they made me cry. But there's so many good ones. Bull Durham's good. There's my favorite. And it's golf. I like Tin Cup. I thought Tin Cup was a great sports movie. Kevin Costner has something where he is great at playing that athlete. He's just got that coolness. So, Caddyshack. If we can say that's my favorite. If that's a sports movie, Caddyshack is my favorite.
There you go. Let's again promote this event next week, Thursday, July 25th. It's at Soundplex Studios in the Pennsauken area. Speakeasy comedy stand-up, $30 in advance, $35 at the door. You, along with Katrina Braxton and Mark Riccadonna, check it out. I know it's going to be a good night. Am I right, Steve?
It's going to be a great show. They're both so funny, and I'm funny too, so it's going to be good.
Yes, you are. Check out your podcasts also, Steve's podcast via the website CooperTalk.net. Coop, this was a blast, as I knew it would be.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and hopefully we'll get together and have a beer soon. And I'm going to go now try to find some pretzel beer.
Well. That was a lot of fun. So glad that I got to know Coop a little bit over the last couple of years. Funny guy, smart guy, and an all-around good dude. Hey, let me tell you about Cavs Philly tailgates. You know that Cav has been cooking up a terrific catering business for more than 30 years, known best for their tailgate parties. Cavs is a 3-time winner of Philly Tailgate's Jack Daniels Great American Tailgate Party Contest and a past winner of the Philly Daily News Tailgate Award. Cavs also does corporate events and parties, you name it. Check the website, phillytailgates.com, for pricing and more info. If you have questions, you can email them at cavscatering@verizon.net. Cavs Philly Tailgates is the way to go. You know that Cav works with Vince at Philly Sports Trips. They're the folks to use for Eagles and all the road games the Eagles have and more. Check out that schedule. Look at that. Philly Sports Trips 2024. Man, they're going everywhere. All the road games. And there are still another couple of Phillies trips this summer. The Pirates trip this weekend is sold out, however. They will get you to Brazil for the Eagles season opener in early September. And this Friday, vetted launch party. This is at Redding's Baseball Stadium. First Energy, and Hollis Thomas and Irving Fryer will be there. So check the website for that as well. And Vince and Cav are already working on next spring's trip to Clearwater. There's a 5-day trip. Jason Worth, the special guest. You can talk baseball and I guess horse racing with Jason Worth. All the details at phillysportstrips.com. You know, this was kind of a tough week in a lot of ways. Unfortunate news in so many cases. An assassination attempt on former President Trump that left a fire chief, husband, and father dead. Plus, we had the passings of actresses Shelley Duvall and Shannon Doherty, sex therapist Ruth Westheimer, and fitness guru Richard Simmons. Plus, we lost former football coach Monty Kiffin, former NFL player Jacoby Jones, and basketball's Joe Bryant. And most people know that Joe Jellybean Bryant was the father of Kobe and a former LaSalle player, but he played 8 years in the NBA, the first 4 of which were spent with your Philadelphia 76ers. He averaged 8.7 points per game for his career. And yes, I know we also had a memorable version, for all the wrong reasons, of the national anthem sung Monday evening before the Home Run Derby by a young country artist. I think everybody by now has heard it, given their take on it, and we'll just put that in the rear view mirror. All right. Let me tell you about next week's show as we wrap things up. Next week, first, I will say that our guy Bill Furman will be back in action, and we're going to have 2 terrific guests joining us on the show next week. We will talk Phillies baseball and more with this Hall of Fame baseball writer, Paul Hagen. Always good to get Paul's take on all things Phillies, especially with it being 1 week before the trade deadline at that time. And with Eagles training camp set to begin on Tuesday, we are very pleased to welcome back BLG to the show to talk birds, Brandon Lee Gouton of Bleeding Green Nation. That is going to be a great hour. All right, that's it. It's 8 o'clock. It's time for me to get some dinner, I think. And I will say thank you again to my guests this week, Steve Cooper and Phil Stiefel, a couple of great dudes making their first ever visits to the show. We will definitely have both of those guys back. They were so darn good. The Irish Rover Station House, Cavs Philly Tailgates, the PPCC 118 Raz Room, and Edge of Philly Sports are our sponsors. We thank them, of course. For Bill Furman, this is Jim Chet Chesko. And we hope you did enjoy the show and that you will join us next week, Wednesday, the 24th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You know where to find us. That's all we got for you this week. High hopes. And as we are set to begin the second half after the All-Star break, we say Go Phillies!